All right. Today I'm gonna try something a little different, and gonna use this little MegaMan figurine as a point of inspiration. I'm not gonna really probably copy it specifically because there's not really realistic movement to it or poses to it, but yeah, at least give me the shape language involved. Also, I'll try to draw this one a little bit more real time as opposed to time lapse. So this is my video game sketchbook that I've been working on for the past year or so. Studies of characters and poses, separate from my comic book and link drawing sketchbook, which maybe I'll do an overview of one day. And I'll start by drawing with this big boy. I like this mechanical pencil with a really non-detailed lead, sort of just to roughen shapes and prevent me from scoring the paper too much. Probably be moving on to the black wing from there. Yeah, a couple of other things that I have on hand here is I've got this kneaded eraser, which is pretty filthy. Let's see if I can't restore that a bit. And I've got sharper eraser, which is kind of like a mechanical pencil. It's a mono 0. I like this for trying to get little details back. And yeah. And then lastly, I also have a little mirror that I use. You won't see it in camera, but I often use this to flip the drawing around and see what the mistakes might be. And simple pencil sharpener. So I'll just start by thumbnailing or roughing in a few different poses so I settle on what I'll do, and then probably take up maybe a quarter of this paper here. Yeah, so usually I start with a rough gesture that I feel might be a good pose, and I'll probably get him sort of in a jumping, shooting position with maybe his head kind of coming towards the camera and his body moving away. So something sort of like this arc with a gun, sort of shoulder kind of coming like this. Maybe the blast will be shooting away from this, and then he'll be head in this space. And what would his left hand be doing? I guess it could just be like something like this. And if his arm is coming towards us, let's see, probably more foreshortened than that even. I want it to be. So yeah, ellipse. Once you can get the ellipses in perspective correctly, you can start actually seeing the volume of the pose you want to do. And maybe something like that. Then this one is going away, and his hand will do something like that. Then what do we do with his legs? Could do something like this leg up, this leg kind of going away. This is already getting a little bigger than I anticipated. But yeah. Let's try to get this little bit more to camera, and then I'll probably have this getting a little bit bigger as well. It's pretty large hands and the head, so I don't know how close I want to stay to the animated nature of this, but I want to be pretty close to the forms. So this is his shoulder, and like that, and then you have something of a bicep, and this would be starting in like here. Probably would want to raise that actually, so it feels almost like he's aiming. So it might be like bigger still. It's kind of rounded actually. And this will have like his sort of mohawk shape. I guess we can call it that. That sort of widow's peak, and the shapes on the sides. That's more or less his helmet is pretty big. So I have to elongate the arms. Everything's growing a bit here, so I'm trying to expand off of what I started with, and I can see the proportions are going to start getting wonky, but we'll see. Indication of the eye in there. And yeah, I want the shoulder to come like this. I think the sweep of his arm needs to be straighter, like he's taking aim. And this will be shoulder, arm, forearm, hand. And this might be like the body would come in through there. I want it to be bent, and then yeah, it's just really no indication of how that knee would work in reality. So let's kind of do it more human-like, and then I guess make sure that lower section of the leg feels big. And that's coming around like this. Okay. Just about a ton. I want to get that camera, the mirror out. Flip around, have a look at it in reverse. Check my proportions and perspective. Feels pretty good. I think one thing that's bugging me is the back leg feels sort of like a silhouette rather than in perspective. So that would be this leg, making it feel like it's not sort of parallel with the camera, but turning towards or away. I think we'd want it to be towards the camera. So I'm reinforcing that by making sure these ellipses are turning in the right direction. And then it'd be the same thing up here. Imagining this, so I'll need to see the tip of the knee, something like that. Also want to fix this while we're at it, make sure the foot turns in to the way we'd expect it to. Is that working? I think it's subtle, but it's a little bit better. I guess one other bit here is this arm is coming forward and it's creating this gun, but I don't like how there's a tangent through here. So maybe one thing I could do is pull this back a little bit. As well as pull the gun forward a little bit. I want that to be fully overlapping. So you can see the way I draw, I kind of like go over shapes quite a lot before I refine them and lock them in. Especially with the ellipses and circles, it can be really hard to get them in perspective. And so that's one of the reasons I use this big pencil. Otherwise I just make a mess of the paper and I can't really erase out a sort of engraved line because my hand tends to draw pretty heavy and I cut into the paper. Yeah, and regarding circles and ellipses, the trick here is, circle or a cylinder pointing towards you directly will be a perfect circle. But if you follow the direction of whatever the cylinder would be, if it's sort of more on edge, it'll be a line, and then wider and wider cylinders until you get to a circular thing. So you can imagine if it's tilted away from you, once you're on the other side of it, then you end up having the cylinders do this until you're full circle, looking away. So with all of my cylindrical forms, whether it's a leg or an arm, always thinking of that line and the orientation of the circle, which would be the end form. And once I have an idea of that, then I tweak it to be irregular if it's meant to be. So yeah, I think that might be my rough in. Feels pretty good. So that's typically where I want to bring in this guy. Actually, one thing I don't really have figured out here is this leg. I guess that's going to be a kneecap of some sort. This is definitely going can indicate the hips a bit better there too. Cut that out a bit. This arm I can make it a little loose because it's going away in perspective, and just leave room for that hand. sure exactly what I want to do there. Maybe I can play with it a little bit in the finer pencils. This, I guess I'll do the same with that. Right. Right, so now I'm gonna erase down a bit. I got this guy floating on top of my pad. Okay. So I'm gonna do this to try to hold on to the general shapes that I like, but make it easy to go over it with a finer line and pull out the shapes that are most valuable to me. So the second pass is usually still pretty rough, but a little less confusion in the lines, so we can still see that. And again, I'm using kneaded eraser for that pass. And I'm tempted to sharpen this pencil, but maybe the fact that this is this interstitial pass at refining it, it'll prevent me from going too hard. Cool, so let's start here. I do try to get a little bit of nuance in the shapes, but I'm still thinking about the forms. See, the trick with final line art is you want it to be smooth and confident, but when you're still searching for your shapes, I find it very difficult to get that all in one pass. So I'd like to sort of slowly arrive at it, like this curve of the rib, and then sense of the hips, that leg. Let's save the head for a minute. This wants to be probably thinner. Go up into the shoulder. Make the arm kind of thin. I do like this being thicker. So this will be sort of cylinder like that shape. Not sure if I'll leave that in or not. Did mess that up. Not sure about this greebly on the sides, a little lame. But yeah, try to get the inside of this gun, create a sense of depth, maybe detail. Okay. Need to be careful with the face. He wants to have I don't want a too angular approximation of his skull, or it'll make him seem a little evil. I think one of the things that's nice with Mega Man is he has that chibi anime sort of vibes, and even in my art style, I wanted to keep it a little realistic, but simplified. Maybe this eye would be squinty to be looking down the eye. Yeah, this face is feeling way too angsty, but I'll still lay it in. I think the eyebrow ridge comes down quite a bit further. So I can bring that right down into the middle of his eyes. This has to be way more centered. Again, getting these ellipses right. It's really the angle of the cylinder has to be. You can see on here it's a little tilted inward, so I think that means that the line would be like that. Then yeah, it's feeling too thin, but I'll probably move on. Yeah, he probably wants to have some sort of grimace, right? Suddenly the face is feeling too squished. Well, I'll revisit that. So here's the leg. Get that in the top here, and then imagine this leg is a little bit awkward. I have no idea what this is supposed to do, but it does look like it has a little bit of a hinge down the side, as well as the line over the top. Would that make sense? Maybe the center of the line is probably something like this. So I've just lost what I was doing a bit with that shape. It's probably a good time to step away from it. Do the next one. Probably leave a little gap in there to make it feel that there's room for it to move. Well, I've just flattened it out. It's a constant struggle with this to get like this. If this leg is the top, I kind of want that to be the center. So you don't want to have creating a flat line off the top. You need that hinge to be the corner to be there. And then might be getting too boxy there, but that's all right. I think this leg would be looking up at it, so we can probably just imagine. That went the wrong direction. Sorry, I put the pencil in my mouth while I'm picking up the eraser, so I'm not sure if that's a good habit or not, but let's assume that this kind of comes up like this. And then looks more like a kind of human knee. I think if we keep that simple, it's probably for the best. Not sure if we'll bother with any sort of musculature there or not. Okay, I think it's time for another look in the reflection. It's not bad. The face and the helmet's the biggest problem still, I think. Maybe also need this to feel like it goes back further. See that? Yeah. That may or may not have made it worse. But now I kind of want to have this front not stick out so far. Do something more like. So that can be a curve that comes into here and comes in like this. But then this. No, I hate that. It still wants to feel kind of cylindrical down here. So then this means that's sort of pointing downward still. And then like that, I guess. Really can't overstate the value of that mirror enough. It's really hard to continue to look at something you've been drawing and see the things that might be wrong with it. And simple look at the drawing in reverse just completely reveals what's working or not. I mean, within reason, like you're still attached to it. So it's really hard to, it's really difficult to see it with complete fresh eyes. But yeah, when working digital, that's something you would just do with a quick horizontal flip. And what's nice about that is you can also just keep working on it as a flipped image, so you can get used to seeing it in that direction and then flip back. But here all you can do is flip it and then try to remember. Yeah, I think that's feeling pretty good. Just one more fix is this here feels very thin. So I'm gonna move that back to hopefully make it feel more substantial connection. This is the knee, this is kind of the front, and then that could be here instead. Maybe even pull it up. How's that? Yeah, Okay. And lastly, what more can I do to the head? It's not too far off, but I'm definitely missing some shape on this side here where it should be thickened up, and up here, and I need to get that mohawk in. And yeah, maybe fatten up this line here a bit. So it's really critical while continuing to add detail that we don't lose sight of the actual form and shape and perspective of everything. Every line that goes down influences the next line, and it can be very difficult to change that once you've established it. So even when it's erased down, like the underlying marks still continue to influence everything. So trying to see through what it should be and tweak the perspective along the way, and not get too attached to the lines of the details you've put down. This is now feeling a little too round, so I'm going to elongate up. And this is something that's also a little hard to do for slightly downward facing faces. Is when a face is facing downward, you're seeing more of the top of the head. So this part needs to get larger, as you'd see it in here. You know, eventually you'd see the entire top of the head instead of any of the face. But when you're drawing it, or when I'm drawing it, I constantly feel like I'm just creating a large head, which, yeah, maybe that's the case. For MegaMan here, I think it could be fine because he's supposed to have a little bit of that look anyways. I might actually cut that in to be a little more angular, because it does kind of have a more helmeted look, more angular, sort of aggressive look. Make sure I pull this out. How's that one looking? That looks pretty good. Maybe, yeah, I've never noticed this before, but MegaMan has a little bit of a Tron aesthetic. Might be wrong. I'm not looking at that reference at the moment, but certainly something about that helmet. It's bringing Tron to my brain. Maybe not. Okay, this is going to be a little hard. I'm going to draw a center line. The center line probably needs to come forward a bit. Yeah, that needs to probably start even further forward, in like this, and then curve back. Checking that in the mirror. Seems kind of okay. I think one drawing mistake, and this is a road hazard for sure, is once you start drawing something like this eye, I become too careful of moving something too close to it or overlapping it, because you're invested in the thing you drew. But I think this whole thing needs to move over a bit, because it's not just like aligned with his face, it's projecting forward. this is probably like this, and then this side comes down like that. Does he have eyebrows? I think, I'm not sure actually. I think in that here, it's so close to the top of his helmet and his eye is huge. I'm just gonna indicate that because it's gonna look weird without it. And then this here, his nose would be like here. So maybe the mouth just fits. I'll pull his cheek out. And pull this around. Yeah. Then the little box is kind of close to the bottom. So that should be here. I'm trying to think of these lines in perspective as we go. It's not just, probably needs to be over a bit. And then there's a cap. That's one line, and that's probably starts around here. How bad does that look? Yeah, that's a bit weird. I did the same thing here where I'm trying to keep this line within that line, but I don't need to. It wants to protrude. The other thing with the ellipses, I have a habit of making the bottoms of them sharper than the tops. That's something to rectify. I can polish that up a bit better in my final line pass in the figurine here. It's really protruding from the side of his face. I just made that way too wide. Now it looks like it's facing us. You can see with all this erasing and drawing back, like the marks become unerasable. And leave this sort of impression on the paper. That's where working with ink becomes helpful. If you do a final pass inking the drawing, then everything else just sort of disappears. But I'm not planning to do that. That ear is gonna drive me crazy. Sometimes it's almost better to go all the way down to nothing and bring it back. I feel like if it's leaning too much to the side, it wants to be more vertical. And does it want to be bigger? In this figurine, it goes down low, close to his shoulder. It does actually have that lean to it, but I'm not trying to match that figurine exactly. I'm just trying to approximate it, or use it as a jumping off point at least. I also want to add a little bit of dimension here. We wouldn't see it so much on the underside. If we can just carve it out enough to make it look like we're seeing the thickness of the helmet here and here. Then same thing, lost the shape of the ear. far off is that? That feels a little cleaner. Looks alright, I guess. Could possibly go a little bit bigger. The thing that bugs me now is going to be this shape. So I need to put that in along the perspective of the helmet to match the perspective of the helmet, and also to get it in perspective in terms of, like, I'm thinking of what these, because it's a box on the helmet, so where should those lines be to follow the contour of it, as well as this way, but also, are we looking up? Are we seeing the undersides of it? Like, for sure here we should see underside of this little extrusion. Here I'm not so sure. I think I need to sharpen this finally, because it's such a small difference between it being in perspective or not. And it's a box, so I want it to be accurate within reason. Let's call it the first small box. Is that looking right? I think we may even want to see tiniest touch at the top of that. So in the perspective of this box, we're going to not see the bottom of it, but we might see just the slightest hint of the top of it. Imagine like this. Tiny bit of the top. Seeing the sides, but we don't see the bottom. Those sorts of decisions or understanding of the perspective of the forms you're doing throughout the whole drawing of every detail. If you're doing a representational drawing that's meant to be in sort of a realistic manner, otherwise, I mean, you can keep it your shape language more two-dimensional in nature. I mean, you can do anything you want to. It's art after all. It's not dependent on reality, but the sort of art that I like is more representational. And here's me trying to get it in perspective off the top. It still feels a little misplaced. I think this line's incorrect. It wants to, as long as the helmet is this far out, it wants to kind of proceed upward a bit further before it moves back. This kind of slopes his head a bit too much, I think. So yeah, I think what we'll aim for is this to be sort of more like that. Then back. Yeah, I think that is better. In fact, I think it maybe even wants to go a little further forward. Yeah, this sort of fussiness in the drawing can be pretty tedious at times. Like all you want to do is get the get away with the forms as fast as possible and have everything just settle in and be correct. But it comes with the territory of drawing, I guess, to have to refine and continually refine these shapes. It's exciting, or enjoyable when you get it right, but when you have to keep redrawing these things, it can just be a rabbit hole. Meaning, like, I'm latching onto this detail and I'm fussing on it, and I'm not paying attention to anything else that maybe is potentially worse. It's just this thing that I'm looking at, and that's the classic trap of not looking at the forest for the trees, or rather the trees for the forest. I'm getting sucked into this one thing, but the problem is, as you work on these details and you're working over and over, it's the thing that you're working on, you're making the lines darker as you go, and in doing so you're drawing more attention to the thing that's maybe incorrect, and then you start suffering it more and you don't want to let it go, so you keep coming back to it, and in doing so you're making the line darker and more prominent and more noticeable, more wrong. Just a little bit what I'm doing here. In the end, you will hope that a viewer of an image like this will be looking at the gun or the blaster, not the giant forehead. But it tends to be that the thing that is wrong with the drawing, or incorrect if you're doing something representational, feels like the thing that everybody's looking at. The most exciting artists can draw something pretty rough and incorrect, and stylistically it still works. All right, how's that? It feels right. To me, at least, at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. This back here, maybe. This will be an area that needs to be fussed with a little bit. It's just the nose. I'm not sure if I'm going to want to highlight it and accentuate the shape of it, or just let it be indicated with the under side plane. I mean, I can either really outline this or just leave the underside. Both are valid ways to indicate. Here I am coming back to that. I want to make this eye more squinty than this one. That's how he's sort of looking down that barrel of the gun, of the blaster. I just want to make the chin less pointy. Do I make it boxy? Or what I want here is the form of the head, cheekbone, and then he wants to feel young, so too boxy might make him feel older. Too pointy makes him seem maybe like a different character. That's not bad, but I want to give a little bit more room pulling the chin down this way and maybe in a little bit. So let's say the face comes in like this, and this would be the bottom of the chin here. And I want to swing it around to be wider on the bottom. Is that right? Yeah, that's all right. It just requires this one to be widened a bit, which is fine. In this case, we're indicating the helmet to go over. Now, this shoulder definitely needs to come over this. So this is a tricky space. If I put the wrong line highlighted, then it becomes the wrong shape overlapping the wrong form. I think that's pretty much right what I want. Let's also pull this out, see if that looks right. That looks all right, assuming maybe that this shape wants to come in a bit. Did I just ruin it? I have. I think I preferred my previous line. Yeah, that's a problem with traditional art. You can't undo. I liked where it was before. It didn't necessarily match what I was doing on the other side of his face, but I think it felt a little more aggressive and more interesting. Again, with the mirror, it's a small difference, but okay, now with this, I'm not sure there's any more panel lines or anything to get out of this toy in terms of what the detailing should be. But yeah, potentially you might say I want to do some form lines and some gravely sort of stuff, but that might ruin it. Maybe I'll just keep it simple. Yeah. Again, erasing and redrawing. Is that the one? That's pretty good. All right, what are we missing in here? Maybe a little bit more clarity in this eye. Can potentially cheat this down. Ideally, I want to get this perspective really good because this is the thing that's out front. I didn't really decide what any of these shapes should be. Maybe it'll just be simplified because that looks probably better than something where I'm trying to add musculature or anything. But I do want to make sure that the perspective of it feels right. So is that gonna work? where it feels like it's squeezing into his arm, squeezing into his head, where the shoulder's hugged up against the side so he can look down the barrel. I think so, hopefully. Might be a little bit of a strange shape, but that, and then yeah, the problem with the shoulder is always that when you try to put the actual shoulder muscle in, because it comes down to like a point, it can sort of it can contradict the form, which wants to be like this. So I think I'll just stick with the form shape, which is more like this. And it kind of cuts in to give it more perspective. Not really sure what this hand is supposed to be doing, but I'll just leave it. It's a mechanical connection of some sort. Not meant to be too thought out. Do want to make sure I make that thin though. Reinforce that perspective of that ellipse. And yeah, this is all about that shape. Shrinking the fingers a little bit to make sure it's receding in space. Does that look right? That's fine. I also want to cut this in quite a bit so that it feels narrow. It's a small change, but I think that helps. He does have some sort of belt on or something, right? That would be around here. Again, this is, I'm thinking of the cylindrical shape of the torso. And then this would be where that hip is. The leg comes out from the hip. And this just also happens to be where that shape would happen. I don't think you'd see it on that side. Yeah, so those are the primary forms, I think. The only gotcha is here. I like the idea of it not protruding though. So I'll leave it as a recess. I could potentially do something fun like getting panel lines around it to feel like a mechanism that might move. Don't want to get into designing costume too much, but something like that could be cool. And then what is this thing supposed to be? I know it's supposed to be a meter of his energy levels, but is that really the best use of this thing? I guess so. I mean, I don't need to deviate, I suppose. Just make it in perspective. Could leave it off too. I'm not sure if it reinforces anything. Actually, it's looking a little weird. This is the center line. This probably needs to come in this way a little bit. How off is that? Yeah, that's right. So I think the problem with this is these lines are too horizontal, but it's actually on the outside curve. that line. It's like same thing. This needs to be curved, so effectively all these lines should be more like that. Yeah. Okay. I guess the only other question I'll have to solve is if I want to do anything like a blast, which could be cool. But that does create a problem with this leg because this is like in line. So if I have a blast line, it's going to create a tangent with the leg. If I just do a blast, that's kind of lame. I mean, if I just do the mark here, I'm not sure if that'll be interesting or not. I think I might do the could be maybe cool just to like leave this section around it white or unlined, and then kind of have this like circle shape, which would be it would just be white. I wouldn't put any of these lines in there, and then from here out have lines that come out. Not sure. Look like it's charging maybe. Well, I'll do the line work pass and then finish that up and make that decision later on. All right. So yeah, I'll erase this down, and then hopefully the next pass is my final line pass. Oh, it's a little bit nerve-wracking doing this because you don't want to lose the good lines, but you kind of have to pull them away a bit just to be able to make better decisions there. If I do the lines, the final line work without doing this, then there's no way to pull them back afterwards, because if it's all pencil, then there you go. Of course, if I do this with ink, that would be better, because I could do it with my ink pass and then just erase with a heavy hand and be fine, because the ink's not going to go anywhere. But that's not what I'm going to do. I just want to do it in pencil. And that's pretty sharp. Okay. So the trick with a fine line pass is that I want all the lines to feel nice and confident, and yeah, sometimes like even a wider line like this, it's gonna be unclear what the final path should be. So there you go, broke the lead on the first pass. It's all right. See, like right there, I screwed it up. Yeah, cutting on the wrong side of I did it there too, crap. With like a very fine thing, like an eye, or it can be a nose or mouth, especially if you're drawing in a detailed way. The difference between drawing on one side of a line or the other side of a line can be a big difference. So I'm gonna go see, how's that? Is it a little funky? It's a little bit funky. I'll draw the rest of the head and find out. Gotta remember the big shapes are the more important decisions to make. Small things are just along for the ride. So okay. This is going to come in like that. That's a nasty corner. Sometimes these spaces where the lines stop can be nice, but when you have a smooth line that has a misaligned connection, that just does not look good. That wants to be further in. Oh, I did it again. It's a silhouette. It's pretty important. Feels okay to me now. Not sure about this eye, but just sort of shrunk it a little bit, and good. And then we'll do the nose. Okay, he's looking pretty angry, but that's all right. Seems all right, and yeah. All right, let's get these lines in. Another one I messed up. This head section will probably be the most tedious, along with the gun blaster area, because that will be a focus point, and the head is a obvious silhouette against whatever's behind it. So getting that line right, for me, that shape is really important. To some extent, I feel like this would be easier if I was trying to do the shape in a. I keep just making the same line again and again. Maybe I should just leave it and come back to it. I feel like that edge is too high. You can see this line is becoming unerasable. Alright, that's the one. And this wants to go around like this and come down. this wants to go higher. Yeah, this would probably be far easier digitally. Now, this would be far easier digitally. You get into vector art even if you're trying to make these really perfect lines. But yeah, who wants perfect lines anyways? Want things to be human made. I feel like people did it. So maybe it doesn't need to be perfect. But still, it's bothering the hell out of me. That wants to fall into perspective. Okay, how is that? That feels like a helmet in perspective. Yeah, I think that's right. I think this is a line we can reinforce and make hard. This one, these lines. Yeah, I don't want to get into shading everything just yet. Feels a little bit like something in perspective now. All right. So there's a head. Let me do this, which should be a bit easier. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe I'll do a little bit of panel line sort of thing here. Not sure what that is, but whatever, it's fine. And then make sure the thumb is a bit bigger and reads as thumb, knuckle there, finger, and the rest of the hand. Does that look right? Yeah, that's feeling all right, I guess. We'll block in this leg because it should be easy-ish. Not too fussy. Trying to adhere to a little bit of this kneecap indication. And then this is in front of that. And then it's going to come around. So I'm seeing the front line and then how it recedes. And this is the line coming across it. Double check that line. Feels pretty good. Coming in from here, I'll go around like that. I might still leave this area empty, so we'll see. Here, this is going to be a little bit of a perspective from the front of the toe. Going back. And maybe I'll just put a little panel line sort of thing. Not sure if that's complementing the form or not. Certainly that bone notch isn't. And what this would want to do is kind of have a little bend in it. Yeah, I think that does help. This. Yeah, a little bit of a form line. We do like to have the under-facing lines to be heavier. So that's all right. Potentially could have put something over here. I'll leave that as an indicated. That's like a chrome reflection or something. The knobbly knee there probably isn't great. I'm just going to make that a little bit more confident. Less knobbly. And crap. There's a tangent. Yeah, so if this is going to bug me, that if that was to come up, it would be going directly into the kneecap. So I'm going to pull that back a little bit. And pull this forward a little bit. That may be maybe it's just something like that. These sorts of things just help with perspective. Just the whole character have a little bit more form and shape, and at least helps me sleep at night a little bit. To think that, yeah, the pieces move together properly. All right, that'll be enough back there. Now I'm gonna move to this side. So we've got the shoulder. This kind of moves in here. Move into the rib cage area and the hip area. And we do have these panel lines of the torso meeting the hips. Then where these shapes, where the anatomy meets the panel lines of the boots. Look at this. I'm trying to create smooth flowing lines here, which is always more pleasing to look at, but really hard to get down if you're not confident with what the form is supposed to be. Seems pretty good. I'll leave it. I do want to create a sense of this being a top form though. So it'd be something like that, which that line is super wonky. I'm not sure if I'm helping by having that line in there or not. So maybe I need to start from the front. I'll leave it. So here I just want to create a little bit of space to imagine there's pieces actually interconnecting, making some depth, and maybe some panel lines just to indicate direction. Okay, and then back to this foot. Feels pretty good to me. I need that panel line matched. That does not look right to me. Why doesn't it look right? I think it's parallel with that a bit too much, and it's this foot would be coming out like that. So there's that, and that's just as parallel as before, but I do like that one better. So that's the one we're sticking with. This pencil does not have an eraser on it. Okay, so that's more solidified lines. I'm not sure what I'm doing with these kneecaps. They're a bit weird, but yeah, I don't like that. I'm just gonna stick with the lines. He is a robot character after all. May as well put some greeblies in there. Okay, now I'm left with the gun. That was nice. Yeah, it's very hard to draw these lines long and without any sort of shake in them. So I'm happy with that. It creates a more fluid shape if you can draw it in one line and not have it bumpy and weird and irregular. That one I went off quite a bit, and I did lose some perspective. So that one is going to have to be fixed. It's this edge here that wants to be a better ellipse. Okay, I think Filipino one's a bit better. It's a little wobbly, but it's all right. I think I do like these things. I'll keep that. I'm not exactly sure what that detail wants to be, but it's a detail. I guess I'm imagining some sort of like a lever that opens and closes this thing up and maybe magnifies the blast. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay, how did those turn out? Yeah, that's all right. Lastly, I need to get this thing in and then decide what to do about this blast radius. So, yeah, this. Okay. Now these lines on the inside, I want them to be pretty faint. They need to follow the perspective here. Well, that's basically that. I feel like it needs a little bit of detailing here and there, so I think I need to make a pass at doing that. What the detail is, it's not indicated on the character. There's not much more on this, so I'm gonna have to think it out. Maybe I'll look at some reference. Yeah, the trick is how you start adding more detail, and I'll start losing the anime aspect of it. So something like maybe just some outlining, some panel marks, some things that maybe reinforce the perspective and the forms. Yeah, and this gun is probably a good place for this detail to be added because it's the thing that's coming towards camera the most. So yeah, the more detail we add, the easier it'll read as moving towards camera and being the focus. So how's that? Is that in perspective? Yeah, feels pretty good. I'm gonna look at this later on and probably see a whole bunch of things I'm not noticing here, but okay. What else could I add? Not sure if these are supposed to have any cross lines on it. This arm kind of bugs me a little bit. It's drawing a bit of attention to itself. Not sure if any of that's helping. This one probably wants to have a little bit of indication of form. reinforce some of this with a panel line or two. Ellipse here or there will give it a sense of a recess where some action's happening, whatever that might be. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with shading. If I want to go and indicate any of this, I could sort of give it a sense of backlighting. Which can help it feel like a chrome or something. Some sort of metallic shape, but if I go really heavy with that, it's gonna be a whole thing. Yeah, but it could be kind of cool. Let me give it a go quick. If I just sort of like give this whole thing a bit of a backlight vibe. It would be the same thing here. So if that's not working, I can always pull it back, but I think it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a shading effect. So I guess I'll just commit to it. I'm trying to pull these lines in some sort of perspective that helps the reinforce the perspective. Of course, just blending it might be with my thumb might be a way to go too. Stuff like this wants to be shadowed. It's really tricky here. This could very easily make everything feel a bit more or too organic, or even hatching. I feel like can make things look a little hairy or, well, not polished. So usually like a chrome sort of material wouldn't have hatching per se, because hatching kind of indicates a diffuse surface rather than a polished surface. Yeah, that gets into material indication, which is a whole difficult area. But long and short of it is that a polished or shiny surface is creating more of a sharp reflection of light or shadow, and something diffuse or velvet or matte is it's reflecting light in multiple different directions, which creates an effect of softness. I'm sure it's no surprise to everybody, but if you're going to create a hard effect, you need clean, sharp shapes, and hatching is an indication of soft shadows, so it's not necessarily what we want there. So yeah, not sure if this is benefiting it with the shading or not, but I think the trick would be just not to go too much further with it. yeah, as I do this sort of shading, what we want to do is remember the form. I totally feel like I'm losing it though here, adding all this extra work, so I'm gonna dial it back quite a bit. How are we looking there? This is probably worse. Yeah, the light should hopefully be coming from this direction and back. So that's kind of the goal here. So as this shape here basically is facing slightly forward, we should not be getting darkness reflected. Just like we shouldn't be getting darkness reflected here or here. Basically anything that's facing forward and not covered by something else. So same thing here, we want to make sure that's held up. This area wants to be brighter, and then the top surfaces and these down facing surfaces can receive shadows. Hopefully this is making sense to anybody. Yeah, I'm not going to add any detail, shadow detail to the face. I want that to be pretty clean. Not sure that was a better decision or not. I'm trying to pull the gun off of the body, but darkening that up kind of just draws attention to that area. And yeah, the problem with shading like this is like, it's like as soon as you start adding it anywhere, you need to add it everywhere, and that's not necessarily best to do as a pencil stage. For something like this, it wants to be kind of more posterized color. So probably better just to put some heavy outlines on some things that you want to be shadowed and stand out, and leave the rest alone. So maybe I can even take my own advice. All right. I think what I need to do is do this blast and then call it. Pencil out again, and let's imagine that the blast is happening right in front somehow, so I'm gonna like radiate these shapes from this point, which is called there. Then same thing on the other side. I'm gonna leave like a shape like that. can do here is create this sense of light through here, which means I want to reduce the line work to make it feel like it's being illuminated. So it'll be like this, yeah. I'll stick with the kneaded eraser. Something like that, and then just hit another tangent. I'm just trying to draw a little noodly, magic-y, I don't know what it would be. Something indication of a blast about to happen. And making it seem like it could be a powerful thing that hasn't quite erupted yet. So a little bit of curry, crackly sort of stuff. Yeah, again, indication of light. It's not really an easy thing to define. I think I just kind of feel it. And one thing we want to do is make sure we're not holding on to anything we think is precious underneath it, and not creating tangents. So breaking these lines and creating overlap wherever possible. Does that look like there's something being destroyed, or is it like energy is developing? Maybe a bit of both. Might lose some of these random ones up here in favor of directional lines. Those lines should all be pointing back to this point. So all right, let's see. These ones suck. Gonna get rid of that. And again, I'll make that some expression of light direction. Love this little eraser for its ability to make small, clean erasures. It's not perfect, but again, I don't know if that should be the goal, though it's hard to not to make that as polished as possible. It looks something like a blast, I guess, about to happen. These lines can probably pulled in a bit. Make this a little bit more of a circular blast about to happen. I can probably pull these lines down a bit, make sure that feels like it's significant. And this one here probably wants to have an edge held onto, as if it's picking up some light from behind. So not sure if that's clear or not. And then yeah, same thing here. This will be all right. Maybe I overcooked it a bit, and that's fine. think that's about as done as it's gonna get. Overdone probably, if we're honest. But yeah, this is how this goes. It's always about working it up until you feel like it's done, and it's usually not going to feel like that until you've gone too far. So unfortunately this foot back here has been covered by this explosion, but I'll pull this out into some sort of star shape to give it some directionality. And maybe some final erasing just to Alright, I think that's it. Okay, well, I guess that's gonna be my MegaMan. Maybe I'll continue and do another one. He is certainly fun. He's a bunch of simple forms and not much anatomy or detail to add, so you can get pretty loose and inspired by it. But yeah, on the other hand, the lack of detail doesn't leave you much to grab onto in terms of yeah, specifics to edit. If there was something more detailed, maybe I wouldn't have added the blast effect, and I do a little bit feel like that's where I lost it, but maybe I can do a paint over or something that makes it feel yeah, maybe I'll bring this into Procreate or something and do a color pass. That could be fun. Yeah, at the risk of going too far, maybe some a little bit of shading on the face there. Reinforce the squint a little bit. Yeah. All right, well, that's it. Thanks for watching today. Love to hear your comments. As always, thanks for watching.